Hey everyone, so I felt compelled to record this video because I wanted to dive in and talk about something that's been absolutely lighting up my socials recently and something that's really interesting in the world of workplace wellbeing. And it's this study that you might have seen that's come out from Oxford University. Seems to have got everybody talking and I'm super excited to unpack it. So let's jump right in. So the headline is that the folks over at Oxford's Wellbeing Research Centre recently dropped a really thought-provoking piece of research. The headline is that basically things like resilience training, stress management, mindfulness classes and wellbeing apps, they might not be as effective for employee wellbeing as we once thought. But here's the really important bit. The authors suggest that we need to pivot from just focusing on individual fixes to looking at the bigger organisational picture. It's about digging into root causes of workplace stress, not just ticking boxes with apps and sessions, right? Now, this really resonates with me because I've always been big on taking a more systemic approach to wellbeing at work. You know, not just relying on the soft and fluffy stuff like mindfulness sessions, but instead getting to the root cause of stress and dealing with toxic cultures. You'd think I'd be all over this study then, right? Well, in a way I am. I do really love it, and I'll talk about that very shortly. But I've also got a few thoughts that I wanted to express through the video as well. So first up, let's ask the million-dollar question. Does this study really prove that individual interventions don't work? So I've got a few doubts about this, and even the author himself admits that there are some limitations to the data and to the research, right? The biggest issue is that the data is all cross-sectional, so it was taken one point in time. So we've got to look out for risks related to that, things like selection bias. So the paper, it compares the well-being and mental health levels of people who have used individual interventions versus those who haven't. The problem here is really obvious, right? Maybe those who are seeking out resilience training, mindfulness, that sort of thing, are doing so because they were more stressed out in the first place. So it'd be great to see if these findings hold with longitudinal data, and again, the author mentions this. Another potential issue is a strange one. It's actually the size of the data set, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I am a data junkie. I think the more data, the better, right? But it is a huge data set. On the one hand, this is absolutely great. We can look for trends, and it's one of the key strengths of this research. However, the risk of this is that it doesn't highlight individual stories and qualitative feedback. So maybe for a few folks, that mindfulness app was an absolute game changer, but the details get lost in the big numbers. Look, I think even with these potential issues, the research is still really strong. And overall, I agree with the message. But the reason for recording this video in the first place was more about the need for balance, and maybe why we shouldn't jump to conclusions too quickly. Firstly, it's kind of funny, in a bit of a sad way, that organisations ignore heaps of research on all sorts of different topics, academic research, MBTI, fixed and growth mindset, I'm looking at you. But when there's a study that questions the mental health interventions, they jump on it straight away and it becomes a big issue. Makes you wonder about selective hearing, right? Like take this study for instance. It's been all over my social feeds lately, but compare this to another great study done by the same team at Oxford that they did last year with data from Indeed.com that showed how employee well-being was linked to things like company and firm performance, profitability and stock price. That study didn't get nearly as much buzz as far as I can tell. So this really shows that we tend to latch onto the negative. We're quicker to pay attention to the things that don't work rather than celebrate what does. As professionals and leaders, we've got to be aware of this potential for negativity bias and try and balance it out. And here's something we shouldn't overlook, the role of well-being leaders and managers in all of this. These folks are trying to navigate the complex world of employee health. Just because a study raises questions, it doesn't undercut all the hard work they've done and the importance of their roles. I guess what I'm trying to do is advocate for well-being leaders. Many of them are doing an amazing job with limited resources, and actually when difficult times hit for businesses, they may be the ones that are first at risk of losing their jobs, and I've actually seen this happen, unfortunately, more and more just recently. So headlines like this one from this study give businesses more fuel potentially to remove these roles and reduce funding and attention to well-being, because it doesn't work, right? I think we need to support well-being leaders with the work they're doing. Maybe you've got a well-being app or training course that really works in your business. Great, let's collect some data and prove it. Maybe your EAP is underused, but it stopped 3 people from having serious harm or worse last year. Well, let's explore whether that's worth it on the whole. And of course, let's work together to make sure well-being isn't just about perks and benefits. It's part of a strategic, systemic approach that addresses the root causes as well. So, what do you think? How's well-being handled within your business? Do you take a more strategic approach already? What value do you see in the individual interventions that you use? And what's the future looking like for well-being leadership roles? Drop your thoughts and comments below. I'm really keen to hear them. Oh, and plus, if you're a wellbeing leader looking to connect with like-minded individuals, remember to join our Working Well community. It's completely free, and I'll put the link for that in the comments below. See you next time.